Hello and welcome to another engaging episode of Stan the History Man. And I'm your host, Dr. Stanley Sandler. And we're continuing on the playlist of how I wrote my low-tech dissertation. And today I want to talk specifically about actually the writing. And I should mention, of course, that I would have a long getting to the Admiralty building where all this writing took place. I'd have to take a long tube ride. And they moved the Admiralty from it was originally a historic building where Lord Nelson was, okay, and Admiral Fisher. I said, oh boy, I'll be right there. No, they moved it way out of town for some obscure reason on what they call a spec-built building, just a glass cage, as it were, and it cost a lot of money in those days, at least, to get out there, just in the tube fares. But anyway, when I got there, the way I would actually do the writing would be I would have a legal pad, a yellow legal pad, on one side of the desk, and then my footnotes sort of right there, I believe, close to it. And so I would have my footnotes lined up, and I would be taking the material from the footnotes onto the legal pad. So I'm making here the first draft, as it were, and I wrote it in fountain pen. Now, I wasn't trying to be archaic or anything about it, but I figured, well, this is serious business, so I should use a serious pen. Now, they had ballpoint pens then, but still, I just kind of like the idea of the fountain pen. I was kind of almost a collector of fountain pens back in those days, but that's another story. So, anyways, I take the material and write it down on the legal pad, and I figured. I would, if I could write 1,000 words a day, handwrite 1,000 words a day, I'd pretty well fulfilled my Protestant work ethic, if you will. And I also had my briefcase there so that if I needed more paper or a pen or something like that, then I'd have it right there at the hand. I'll often have my lunch in it as well. We couldn't just go out to the nearest 7-Eleven or something, because they didn't have them then. They pretty much had little tea houses and things like that. So if you want to have something in the middle of the day, you pretty well, if you're a starving graduate student, you should bring your own. So anyway, say 6 hours of writing, and that then I would take that amount home. Of course, I had footnotes as well. And the way I did the footnotes would be I'd mark in the like a sentence where I would quote somebody. I want to put that, a footnote of who said what when. I would write that on another sheet of paper, but in the actual legal pad thing, I would have the first draft. I would have a like 4 or 5 or something for the footnote. And I should mention, of course, in those days, the footnote was to be at the foot of the page when you typed it up, and that was a problem, because how would you calculate how much space you need at the bottom? Maybe you wanted 2 footnotes at the bottom, or even 3 or 1. How do you calculate how much how you'd leave for that? Well, that was a kind of a complicated formula there. Okay, so then the sentences I would, if one was I didn't like the way one followed another. I would write a balloon around it and then have an arrow going to where I wanted it. So, I mean, let's say this sentence really didn't follow the other sentence properly. So I, write the balloon and arrow it up there. There's no point and click or anything like that. So we had to do it manual. And I should mention that you had to be careful when you wrote, because all this ballooning and arrowing and everything that took time, and our time was limited. We were we didn't want to be perpetual graduate students, like they never get the dissertation. So we weren't, at least I wasn't, pressed. We got to get this done, but there was a time factor involved there. So that's much time not working, not having an income, anything like that. So you had to be careful writing even that first draft to get that as right as you possibly could. So then, when it was this rough draft, as we called it, was completed, then I would have to have it typed up. and the typing then was done with the manual typewriter. We didn't have there were electric typewriters then, but they're clumsy, and I never thought very much of them. And I actually had a beauty of a typewriter. It was a cast iron. It had cut glass windows on the side. I had it for years. Of course, typewriters are, of course, a vanished form of writing now. But I say this was writing the first draft, and the various tactile, if you will, that we had to use for it. So actually, you could say, I mean, you could, that's what happened. I'd have to write the dissertation once, the first draft, but then I would have to do the type draft or the second draft. Okay. So, and the second draft, I mean, that's, typing was kind of hard work. I mean, the typewriter, you had to use the fingers and a certain amount of pressure. So it was, and again, if you made a mistake, well, then what would you do? You'd have to use whiteout or erasers. And I believe I mentioned that in some detail of the technology involved, the low-tech technology for writing a low-tech dissertation. Well, thank you for listening in, and I'll be back with you soon. Bye-bye.